quite keen on. And so, I hope I'll be able to share some of my experiences with all of you. Yes, I have a BTech in chemical engineering. I graduated way back in '92, and then I worked for a few years as a chemical engineer in India. And then I went to Lehigh University on the East Coast, Pennsylvania, did a PhD in environmental engineering, and then went to Penn State and did a postdoc, which was also with something which is used by environmental engineers called membranes for treating water, cleaning water and all. And after that, I joined a company which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with at gas stations, which is called Chevron. And I I've been working here for the last 10 years. I'm called an oil and water treating specialist. But as you know, the oil and water has the word water in it. So I have something to do with cleaning up the oil from water so that the water can be used for some good purposes. So that's the kind of work I do. And, when I say cleaning up of water, then we are talking about small quantities of bad stuff which is in the water. And today, I know that you guys are interested in knowing about trash. So generally, the word trash would mean, I guess, something more than what I do. Sometimes you have got trash, which is about plastic and waste and styrofoams and such stuff. So that could be considered within the domain of environmental engineering. But there are many other things that you do as an environmental in this field of environment, very holistic field. So it's like an ocean, and you've got one particular component that you have chosen to work on. So a couple of things that I have done in my previous incarnation as a engineer working during my PhD was to work on removing some of the polluting chemicals out of water. One of them, for example, is called arsenic. And arsenic is a serious health hazard for about 130, 140 million people in India and similar numbers in Bangladesh. It affects millions across the world. So what I have done in some of the work that I still continue to do as part of my interest is to support the innovations which were done in inventing some new materials in our research group from the grad school where I went to. There was some smart materials that were invented, and they have become commercial. So what I do is I take those material, or rather I pay for building up such materials and into water treatment units. And I have so far helped in building 3 units, one in India, one in Bangladesh, and a third one for removing fluoride, which is another contaminant or makes water dirty in India. So these are the kind of things I do out of my interest. Outside that, I used to live in the Bay Area for 10 years, but now I live in Bakersfield, which is south of where you guys live. And I am building up a small system for kids who go to the local college and build a water treatment system for them to work on so that they can educate themselves. So that's the kind of work I have done. And when it comes to trash, I haven't done a whole lot of work in trash as solids, waste, because trash could be solids. That's what you normally think of. And when I first think of trash, I often think of a landmass, a space of the size of Texas, which is near Hawaii, which I'm sure some of you might have read about, that there is a spot in Pacific which has all the plastic and waste which somehow gets collected because of the motion of the ocean currents. And the area that they occupy is about the size of Texas. So, you can just imagine how important a subject you have chosen for your work. So I think you'll have a good time exploring trash as a subject. Um, if you would like at this point to ask me any question, then I may be able to explain some things to you. I can share some of my ideas. If you whatever you would like me to talk about at this point, I would try to speak about it.
Prakar, that's a very nice, beautiful summary explaining your life from where you chose the career and as you went through the phases and what you're currently doing. That's fantastic.
Thanks. And I must add here, Sudhir, that when you chose trash as a subject and then think a little bit more deeply about trash and then environment, you think about environment, and there is a broad framework of environment in which you have got environmental engineers like me. But even more important than environmental engineers, in my opinion, are environmental activists and environmental scientists who, for us, we are only trying to mitigate an existing problem, but they are addressing the very fundamentals of how world should be like. During my college days back in Delhi, I used to participate in environmental movements. I was and I am still against the modern concept of development, if you will, and I used to participate against big dams and so forth. So people sometimes reject them as being disturbances who are blocking the path of development. But I can surely see that in the coming decades, ours was a generation which was more into develop to consume, but the kids who are in this 10 to 12 age, they are becoming more and more conscious, and I'm sure that many of them will work towards fixing that problem that we have created, I think.
Correct. Well said. Can you, you mentioned about your work in India. Can you just explain in about 5 minutes what exactly you did with your work in Bihar, I presume, on the water treatment?
Sure. So, so there's I work in an area called ion exchange. Iron, if you look at water and any solution that water is, it is made up of components which are called ions, and ions are basically all the elements in the nature. They have they are in a state of I don't know how much you know about it, but let me try to explain this way: that if you take a salty water like seawater, it is made up of sodium chloride or brine, and sodium chloride is made up of sodium and chloride, and these are ions. They have a charge, which means one of them has less of what is called an electron and the other has a surplus of electrons. So they become ions, cations and anions, one which is positive, the other is negative. So some of these ions can be harmful for our health, and arsenic is one of those, and fluoride is one of those. I have yellow teeth, and that's because I grew up in a part of Bihar where there was a lot of fluoride in water. So everybody who lived in the one part of the town had yellow stained teeth. I lived on the other side, but every summer I would go to live with my grandma on the fluoride part of the town, and then as a result I got yellow teeth all through for my life. So yeah, that and so and so I'm building one unit to remove fluoride from water, which will be built in Bihar by the end of this year or early next year. But going back to what we have already done is that in my research group where I did my PhD, the professor and my fellow student, they invented a material, and that material was good at picking up arsenic, the anion or the bad ion from water. So that material looked very good. So a lot of people recognized it. In the 2 years back here in the Bay Area, for sustainable technology, we got an award from Intel for developing that material. So we use that material in a column or a vessel, which could be maybe 12 feet long and maybe 3 feet in diameter or so. And then inside that vessel, you fill it up with the arsenic material. And what I can probably do is that after this thing is over, I can send a link to a YouTube video, which some of you may want to see if you are interested. So
absolutely, please do so.
And so what we did here was that this bed of material is good at picking up arsenic from water. So it is good enough to produce 4,000 liters of arsenic-free water for people to consume. So in this particular case in Bihar, the one unit that I supported and helped build, it actually provides water to about 800 people, and I think it's the only unit which is working well since 2011 and hasn't been regenerated. And I wanted to use the word regenerated on purpose, because any of these materials which are meant to pick up ions, they have the capacity. When you eat, you at one point get full in your stomach and you say no more. So this bed of material also picks up arsenic, and after running water for a long time, at one point it gets exhausted and says, enough, I can't pick up any more arsenic. So whatever arsenic goes in is the same arsenic comes out from the bottom of the column. What goes in comes out. If you are reaching that stage, then it calls for saying, okay, we have to stop this process and now do something so that we can pull out all the arsenic from this column and then restart the process. So that is what we call regeneration. So when you use it to make arsenic-free water, you are using it in service. And when the service cycle is over, you do a regeneration. Once you have regenerated, then you put it back in service. So that goes on and on, And the key is that when you regenerate, you use maybe only 4 liters of water to regenerate. But when you run it for 4,000 liters. So that's the way it should work. If you use the same amount of water to regenerate that bed, then you are not doing any good, because you are ending up with 4,000 liters of trash or waste, if you will, to handle. So, so this plant was built in a village called Maner, near Patna, which is the capital of Bihar. And it provides arsenic-free water to people. Then another one we built, in Bangladesh, which came up this year. And how we built up was also kind of motivational for me when my 11-year-old, since you are kids of that age, told me that there are 2 great barriers to human existence where people fight for, and one is called religion and other is called nation. So if we could abolish these 2 things, then we'll be a better, we'll be in a better place to live in. So that gave me an idea to build this plant in Bangladesh, because I thought that being an Indian, I was attached to India. So if I could build something outside my country, then I would sort of set up an example of doing something outside the boundaries or limitations of nation. And also, if you know that Bangladesh, it is predominantly a Muslim country. And so I told to myself that if I build something in a country which is predominantly Muslim, then I would have transcended another barrier, which is limiting to humankind. That is how we behave, identifying ourselves in terms of religion and, all those narrow considerations of color and skin and all that. So it was kind of philosophical for me to look at it. And I thought it might be a good thing to share with my child. So we built the one in Bangladesh. And the fluoride unit which we are building is because of my personal experience with fluoride in water and the yellow stain that I had. And that was very mild effect of fluoride. If you have lots of fluoride, which is the case in the village where we'll be building the fluoride unit early next year, the kids are born and their bones are rickety because the fluoride is so high that it has deformed their bodies and bones and all. Of course, it all requires a bit of effort. It also requires some, you have to give something from your resources. But I can tell you that whatever we do in these things, they are really very uplifting for our lives. So I think that going back to the trash subject that you have chosen, I would definitely encourage you to work on this subject and reflect on it in as many ways as possible, not just as finding a technical solution to this problem or finding how people can solve these problems, but also relate to how we lead our lives, how much we consume. If there are 5 things that we buy and instead we buy 10, then probably one day the remaining 5 will go into trash. So
that is correct. Absolutely correct.
So thinking about that is important, and also when we think about those things, then also such qualities come in that help us grow in life. Because if you just go in the mad race of excelling in certain things, sooner or later you will find that in this mad race there are other madmen as well. And then you might feel very depressed or dejected as you grow up in life. But if you have a higher purpose of this kind, then you will always have an anchor to latch on to, and you'll feel happy all your life. So I think that I would very much encourage that you take this subject seriously, put all your heart and soul into it, and not just think about the consequence of whether you'll get the best project award or the second best. The very fact that this is a theme which is worthy of pursuing for its own nature, you must do it.
Well said, Prakar. And in fact, the point where I caught my attention more was that you picked Bangladesh and picked Muslim. And today what's happening in the world very well brings out the point that what you did is a great thing. Absolutely fantastic. We have, it's so eye-opening for me myself. And if you might, I just have to say that I have recorded this session, because if any kid has missed it, I would put it out for them to watch it later. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
I didn't ask you permission prior, but we started and go on. So, if you notice that kids there would be raising their hands, so they have a electronic way where they can raise their hand. So we had, I let the kids coordinate and ask questions, and others, if you have questions, please raise your hand and use the core values to work around the scenario. Kavya, can you coordinate?
Yeah.
Okay, Kavya on the right, okay.
Yeah, okay. Kavya, who do you want to ask question? And then you can lower their hand if you can, or I can do that. Let's start with one of them. Pick one.
Sammy, would you like to ask, do you have any questions?
Yeah. What college did you graduate from?
I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. And then I did my PhD at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. So those, I guess, these are the 2 qualifications I had. And then I went to Penn State, Pennsylvania State University for a postdoc.
Okay. So, Gautam, do you have any questions?
Yes. I don't know your name, how to pronounce it properly.
Prakar, P as in Peter, R-A-K-H-A-R. Prakar.
Prakar?
Correct.
Do you have any other team members in your team that helped you do all this? Do you have anyone in your team that has the same knowledge as you on this topic?
In fact,
at the same level as you?
I think this is one point I should have actually mentioned when I was talking about it, but I'm glad that you brought it up because frankly, as I mentioned to you, that there are a couple of things that go into all these efforts. One is somebody who may have an idea that got generated. So it was my colleague in college and my professor and all those guys who invented something. But then there are some people who have to show the enthusiasm with monetary support, coordinating, finding a place where it could be applied. Even talk to maybe a government official in that area, which is a bunch of things, list of things that have to be done. So I was in that role. But then there are also non-government organizations or NGOs which were involved. So, for example, here there was an NGO which was started by my advisor, professor, to which I transferred about $5,000 of money, and then that non-government organization transferred those $5,000 to another non-government organization back in India, and that non-government organization in India coordinated with the workers in the village to transfer the equipment and other resources which were bought with this money. So, frankly speaking, nobody alone can do all these things. It has to be a coordinated, unified effort and sustained effort. And then, so you can't really take credit for any of these things, because the more you take credit for such things, then you start to feel superior, and that's very, very dangerous for putting your heart and soul into anything. So that was a very good question that you raised, and you're right that anything that you do is always successful or moves in the right direction with the support of and contribution from many entities. Even the person who is consuming the water is actually a contributor to this cause, because he or she is the person who is going to tell you how the water is tasting, how it is impacting his or her health. If you watch the video that is there on YouTube, the guy says that he and all the people in the village have not had any stomach upset for the last few months or year. I don't recall what he said. But the point is that when he makes such an admission, then it encourages other people who are in that effort to do more and work harder. So, very good point that you brought up.
Keshav, do you have a question that you want?
Yeah. My question is, you said all the negative effects of fluoride and the arsenic. Are there any positive effects on humans from either of those materials?
Well, that's a very good point. If you look at it, when it comes to fluoride, there's a debate about it. They say that there is a trace amount of fluoride in your drinking water. So I think that a small amount of fluoride is considered to be good, but again, it's a matter of debate right now. As far as arsenic is concerned, the arsenic by itself in the water is not very helpful for humans, and you have to sort of understand why it is in the nature that way. What has happened is that arsenic, if it is exposed to air, then it all by itself it becomes like a solid particle. It no longer remains in water and it gets separated. But what has happened in our humankind and development, that we are developing so much of industries, urbanization, homes, etc., that the water which is what we normally would have had consumed, surface water, which means water in rivers and ponds, etc., they are becoming less and less accessible. So people are therefore trying to get water from deep inside the ground. So what they are drinking now in many places, because the water table has come down, there are places in Andhra Pradesh in India where the water table has gone down like 1,200 feet. So they are now getting such waters out, and that water is so salty that it has totally killed agriculture in states in the arid areas of India. Here in California, with the prolonged drought, people are consuming groundwater so much that the companies which are engaged in borewell making, they are booked for the next 4 years, and so the ground is gradually sinking, and more people are relying on groundwater, and so groundwater comes from deep inside, and that's a place where there is very little oxygen. It's a very reducing or less oxygen type environment, and that's the environment in which arsenic is released from the rocks and gets into that water. So going back to your question, that arsenic by itself is not very helpful to humans. So and if it was naturally in the natural course of human existence, we would not be drinking arsenic free water. But because of our circumstances, we drink from deep inside in these places, and therefore we get exposed to arsenic. So that's kind of a long, twisted answer to your question.
Thank you.
Kavya,
Yes.
I have to go inside the temple, so can I go?
Yeah, sure.
So I have two questions. So my first question is, how did the fluoride and arsenic get into the water?
Oh, I just mentioned that it is because of the water. Water is water, liquid, and it also sits in next to a rock. So rock is also made of some things, water is made of something, and they talk to each other. So the rock says, I've got something that I can offer to you. Would you like it? And water says, yes, come in. And so it gets dissolved in that water.
Okay. And I had one more question. What's the main trash that's usually found in the water?
So again, trash is a very general word. I don't know how to explain that to you, but my thinking is that normally people think of trash as styrofoam cups and bottled water. You've got empty bottle, your plates and cups and all the garbage that is collected from day-to-day existence. I do not know whether they could be considered as part of the trash, as you would say, in water. The trash in water is more like that which makes the water dirty. So these bad players which are there in water, if you recall, a few years back there was a spill in the Atlantic Ocean, and a lot of oil was spilled out in water. That water became oily. So that oil is a trash for that water. When we do some work in our corporation and companies, then we create products, but then we also have waste product. And that waste product could be part of water, therefore it's trash there. So you can't really, I don't have a good answer to saying what is part of the trash. It depends on where the trash is and what is being done. So, if you are at a picnic spot and there is a creek going by, then likely the trash there is all the junk that we generate out of a party.
Okay, thank you.
Money, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. How about Isha?
Have any questions?
Okay. What are you planning to do on the trash subject, all of you?
We haven't chosen a trash item yet. We're still going to vote on it, but we will do that soon. So.
Can you explain what trash item, Kavya, each of the team members have kind of picked to do their research?
Okay, so I have chosen car tires, because they have many dangerous chemicals in them, and when they biodegrade, they send all those, they release all those chemicals into the soil, air, and water. Keisha, would you like to say what your trash item is?
Yeah. My trash item is like home compost that you produce in your home. There's already many solutions for having less compost lying around, and that is one of them is very common, which is bury it under the ground. And one problem with that solution is that when you bury the materials in the ground, they're filled with nutrients, which is good for the plants. Plants' roots collect nutrients. But if the roots collect too much nutrients, the plant will die. And many people believe in the burying, and it is good. But if you have too much, it's bad. And considering how much compost is produced, a lot of plants will die if we don't come up with a better solution besides just putting in the compost bin and just putting it in the land.
Have you thought of some solution on that?
Oh yeah. So the solution I came up with is to incorporate the compost, some compost, not all the compost, but some certain compost to reduce it. We will be able to incorporate into bait because a lot of materials go into the ocean. And since it's very common, when we're throwing away materials, instead of throwing harmful materials, we can throw things like bait, which are good. Sometimes animals eat, and also scientists use them when studying animals like sharks. They have huge tanks of bait, and we can incorporate some amounts of compost in the bait, but in a positive way, not something that will harm the animals.
So basically, you're trying to find another let's say customer, not the right word for it, but another consumer of that compost, right? So one is your plant and the other one is the shark. So basically finding more people or more entities which can utilize that compost, right? I think the video isn't working right now, so I can't, you're still out there. But.
He must have slightly gone off connection because he was breaking up a little bit.
Right, I saw that, yeah.
But that's exactly what he was trying to say. Anyone else? Prakar, your time is important, and 8:30, and the kids are there in that. I just wanted to ask, anybody else who want to share their trash item? We heard from Keshav and Kavya. Who else is?
I see Diya's hand up.
Okay. Diya?
So my trash item is soda cans. And I chose soda cans because a lot of people use soda cans. Approximately 6,700 soda cans are used per second.
Wow.
So I thought it's like a really common thing that people litter. I see a lot of soda cans on like the beach and on the ground, like in parking lots. I constantly see like soda cans. So it'd be cool if we can find something that would like reduce all this trash.
Yeah, that's a good subject. I don't know. Maybe sometime we can learn what solution you had. It'll be nice to know.
Prahad, this is Anu. I'm assisting Sudhir with some of the stuff, and I really like the way you put it, where people think of trash as only aluminum cans and styrofoam cups, but there's a lot more. That's what FLL is trying to get these kids to learn. They've kind of asked these kids to think a little bit broader about trash. And as part of their research also, they're like Kavya was picking tires, somebody's picking compost. They're trying to look a little bit broader into what else is trash. And they're also looking into what is the whole life cycle and what can be done better at any part of the life cycle, either to reduce the amount of trash. So it's like, how do you make less trash, or how do you handle it better? So that's the question they've been asked. So they're all going to come up with, I've asked each of them to come up with either a completely new idea or take an idea and kind of make it better. And it would be great if they can share it with you again at that phase and get your feedback on it.
Sure, yeah. Although I may not know a whole lot, but I can definitely try to contribute to the effort.
And maybe because your time is precious, maybe by email or something would also work. That'll be great.
Yeah, sure.
Prakar, thank you. You know what? Yes. Before you come in, I just want to say, Prakar, to add on to what Anupriya said, at the end of their, which happens quite around October end, they would be done with their solution and they have to share it with a professional. And you're one awesome person whom I think, because you've heard them before they pick the topic, and in the end, it will be nice if they can share and you can provide your feedback.
Sure.
Awesome.
I will.
Thank you. We had somebody else with a question. Or to share their trash item. Who was that? Was it Gautam?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. My trash item. I know it might not sound like it now, but book covers.
Wow.
Book covers. They're. I was just noticing this in school. I was just walking back past one of my old teachers' rooms, and they were talking about how their new workbooks don't match up with their old books. So I was wondering, where do the old books go? So, the old books are since books are made from paper. Usually they're recycled, right? But sometimes they're thrown into flames. Like you see in movies, sometimes they just throw them into flames. Even from movies, it's not good to do that at all. It hurts the environment just like any incinerator would, because of the toxins that produces out. And most of the deadliest toxins in the world are man-made, and incinerators and all. And it's also, I looked this up, it's really a weird number, but 27.04 books are generated a minute. So it was, I actually saw that it was about 2,220,000 books a year. And that is pretty unbelievable because if you go to like a library, you see lots of books, right?
Yeah.
But you can't really see different books. But you see different books all the time, so it's kind of a thought, where do they go?
I think it's these are all good thoughts. So I think it'll be nice. You guys finally come up with some common theme and work on it, and let me know how it came out.
Excellent, Prakar.
Uncle?
Yes.
I think someone else is also wanting to.
Who else? We'll take one last thing because.
Can I go?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Isha. Your last.
Okay, so so my trash item was water bottles, and I came up with water bottles because I searched online and I found out that water bottles was one of the most commonly used trash item that you find in a dump, because like the first, almost like for some people think the first thing you see is like water bottles and cans and everything. And so I chose water bottles, and so I chose this because many animals and many other stuff get die because something happens, like they get choked on a lid or like a water bottle lid or something like that, and they die. So my idea was to, like, since we want to reduce the trash in the dump, but we also want to recycle, I found that maybe we could use the stuff like from the dump, like maybe some old cans, some other compost, some other just random stuff, and make a container so those can be used for water bottles. So
So you're reducing the trash in the dump, and you're also getting the water bottle, which is what you need.
Yeah, I think that's another good thought. So,
all right. So thank you very much, everyone. What do you guys have to say to Mr. Prakar? Unmute yourself. And
Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for helping us.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Have a good time and let me know how it came out. Okay.
all right,
Bye.
Prakar, I'll call you in just 30 seconds once I just share. I just want to talk to you for 30 seconds. Okay?
All right. Okay.
I'll call him. Thank you very, very, very much. It was enlightening, I'll say. Nothing more than that I can say. Thank you. All right. Guys, Avanti, Kavya, can you take from team members the takeaway and summary and make a document now since it's fresh in their mind?
Okay, bye. Take care.
1 point from everybody who is available, Kavya. Just take a takeaway. I'll call Prakar. I need to speak to them.
Can I go first?